Hey, they wanna wunga.
They wanna wunga? Hey, it's Kevin from Happy Beard Games. If you were a kid growing up in the 90s and you loved Star Wars, chances are you were just as hyped as I was when you found out that they were making a new Star Wars, the prequel trilogy. Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, hit theaters in the late 1990s, and to me, I was very hyped. Just before the movie release, there was a ton of promotional tie-ins, including posters, toys, and of course, video games. There was at least 2 major video games based on Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. One of them features the same title as the film, and it's for the PlayStation 1, which follows the course of the story from the movie. There was another video game released for Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, and that is Star Wars Episode 1 Racer, based on one of the most memorable scenes in the film, the pod race scene. Yeah, that's right. Now this is pod racing. And we've got this on the SEGA Dreamcast. This was also released on the Nintendo 64, the Game Boy Color, which featured a Rumble Pack of all things, and also on PC and Mac. Now, each of the main versions on home console and PC Mac were slightly different in features, but retained the same basic gameplay. There was also an arcade version, which is really cool because you can actually feel like you're in a pod racer. Alright guys, buckle up because we're going to take on Star Wars Episode 1 Racer for the SEGA Dreamcast today on Happy Beard Games. Man, I've been doing a lot of racing games recently. This game is a very arcadey racer, but it has some customization options which you will need to take advantage of to win each race as they become more and more challenging. You begin by picking a driver. I chose Anakin Skywalker because, come on, why not? But there is a few other aliens that I find interesting in the design of them. There's no Wookiees though. I guess they might get a little heated in that pod racing scenario, especially on Tatooine. Actually, even as a big Star Wars fan, I don't recognize any of these alien species outside of the pod racing scene from the movie. In Star Wars, you find aliens that have a species, they have a planet, they have a backstory and a lore. A lot of these aliens I don't know anything about, and I have not seen them or heard of them outside of this pod racing scene. You can also unlock a few pod race drivers, like Anakin's rival from the film, Sebulba, later on. Each driver has their own assigned pod racer vehicle. What is a pod racer and what does it do? Think NASCAR, only at much higher speeds and sci-fi. Now when you start the race, you're greeted with a CG cutscene that shows off the track setting. Then, there's another in-game intro before the race begins. Why did they need 2 of those? If I remember correctly, the N64 version is missing those CG cutscenes. The first track is the Mos Espa race on Tatooine, Anakin's home planet, and the racetrack from the film, in a reduced form. A much fuller version of this track will appear at the very end of the game as the final race. Racing is fairly simple, yet can be hard to maneuver due to the game's sheer speed. Racer is a very fast game, probably up there with F-Zero or even Mario Kart 8 when it's on 200cc. The controls are easy to understand too. Unlike Mario Kart, there is no items or pickups. There is, however, a boost option to give you an advantage. By holding up on the control stick, when you're going at your max speed, it'll give you a boost that you can activate. However, the boost comes at a price, or 2. You have to watch out for your new speed, as well as keep an eye on your engine meter, which will tell you if your pod is about to overheat. Yeah, overheating. Just like in the film, your pod racer can overheat and then explode. So during a race, your pod racer can get damaged, either by smashing into something or someone, and also by overloading the boost, you can catch on fire or worse, explode. You can repair your pod during the race. Repairing your pods will slow you down a little bit, but it's not as bad as crashing. You continue to race through the game on various tracks included in each cup, and they are different for each rank. Most of them take place on different planets in the Star Wars galaxy far, far away. The only recognizable ones to me are Tatooine and Malastare, the home of Sebulba's people. There's more to do in this game than just race, however. You can buy parts to upgrade any pod racer either at Watto's shop or in Watto's junkyard. Wow, Watto sure has a monopoly on this pod racing stuff, doesn't he? There's multiple attributes of your pod racer that you can buy parts for to improve. They include top speed, acceleration, shields, and more, as you might expect from different aspects of a car. You can also buy pit droids. Pit droids were seen in the movie briefly, and they're basically like a pit crew, but they're robots, and that makes them safer to work around giant pod racers, which basically have jet engines on them. Now, to buy these things, you have to earn money. You can earn money on races in 3 different ways. You have the option to set it before you go into a race. You can do a fair amount where everyone gets a little bit of money close to each other. You can do a harder amount where the top prize gets a lot more. And then you've also got winner takes all, which is only if you're sure you're going to come in first place. You can do a winner takes all and you'll get a lot of money that way. And this takes me to what I see as the biggest flaw in this game. When you earn money from a pod race, you spend that money on new parts, okay, but if you want more money, you can only get it by completing new races. And there isn't that many races to do. You cannot, as far as I know, go back to a past completed race to earn that money again. Even if you come in a different position. Say I came in second place the first time. I want to go back and come in first. As far as I know, I couldn't get the money from playing that same race again. Like, once you beat it, you're stuck with whatever money you had. I got to a point in the game where I couldn't even continue because of this. It was because my pod racer wasn't good enough to compete with the other pod racers, which were also upgraded. I mean, sure, I could spend a lot of time working on my gameplay skills and then becoming better as a game player, but I'm still at a huge disadvantage here, especially when you try to move on to the next cup, because it does give you the option to choose any of the cups right off the start. It's not impossible. I have completed it fully as a kid back on the N64, and in terms of gameplay, they're identical. Other game modes include the SEGA Dreamcast exclusive online leaderboards, featured on the cover art, and good luck with that. I don't know what scores you'd see and how current they would be, because this game's quite old now. Another thing I found interesting was if you click on the leaderboards from the main menu of the game, it'll take you to a SEGA Dreamcast online web page that won't load, but it's still there, and it's interesting to look at. Remember, the SEGA Dreamcast was one of the first systems to really push the online gaming as it is today. Not the first online system, but the first one to really push it, a trend that Xbox would follow up greatly. There's no online multiplayer on this game, but on the PC and Mac edition, I believe there was at least LAN. Other modes include an offline multiplayer for up to 2 players. I haven't tried it on the Dreamcast, but back on the N64, it was a lot of fun. Additionally, there's a time challenge mode where you can challenge and see your top times on each racetrack. Altogether, Star Wars Episode 1 Racer really lives up to its name and what it's based on. At first glance, it may seem like a cheap movie tie-in, which is a relatively short scene in the Star Wars saga. But for what this game is, it really does give you the sense of being in a pod racer and racing at incredibly high speeds. Every Star Wars fan knows that there's lots of hidden details in the background of the Star Wars films. This game is no exception. Little details in this game include Jake Lloyd coming back, the actor that played Anakin Skywalker in The Phantom Menace. He came back to do some voiceover work for this video game. There's also some cool stuff like seeing cameos of other Star Wars characters, such as Qui-Gon Jinn and Watto's shop. You can also see C-3PO. Star Wars Episode 1 Racer is a fast, fun, arcadey, yet detailed racing experience set in the familiar Star Wars series. Alright guys, now this is pod racing. Alright guys, thanks for watching Happy Beard Games. Stay tuned for more. Bye! Now, the SEGA Dreamcast controller is pretty unique. I mean, there's nothing that really looks like it too much. I mean, there's the Xbox controller, which looks pretty similar and features the same A, B, X, Y in the same positions. You know, it's kind of a unique controller, and it's pretty advanced for its time. And not only that, but you kind of got to assemble a little bit first. You got to put this cord back here. For whatever reason, it doesn't come out the back, it comes out the bottom and the front, which is really annoying, but you gotta kind of assemble it a little bit. And then you've got your memory cards, which some of them look like this. This is a mega memory card from Performance. Ooh. And it's got 4 different memory cards built into one. You have to choose a slider to get to the other cards. That's really weird. Well, you take the memory card and you shove it in the back like that. And then you've got that. You're good to go. But if you want a better memory card, you got this thing from SEGA called the Dreamcast Vmu, the Visual Memory Unit, which has its own battery, has its own speaker, it's got its own screen, of course, which actually displays when you have it plugged into the controller, so it's like a precursor to the Wii U. And then you've got a little D-pad on here, A and B, you've got sleep button and mode button, you can play little games on it. It's a great thing to have for your Sega Dreamcast. So you take that little bad boy, the VMU, and you shove it into that slot on the controller so it clicks in nice and sturdy. And then you've got the screen on the viewport of the controller, which would otherwise be blank. Now you can customize the screen, and it's actually like a little game within a game. It's a really interesting concept. So once you got your controller set up with your cord in the back, you've got your optional rumble pack or memory card, you've got your VMU, which is also a memory card, and you're good to go to play some Sega Dreamcast. And let's get racing.